Samuel Pepys' Final Days, a humorous farewell, as told by Pepys himself. This narrative is proudly brought to you by Polly Speaks For You. At Polly Speaks For You, we are committed to empowering individuals, especially those with disabilities or learning challenges, through innovative text-to-speech and voice recognition technology. Polly Speaks For You is more than just software. It's a tool for self-expression, connecting people with the world in meaningful ways. By blending the richness of history with cutting-edge technology, Polly Speaks For You demonstrates that every voice, whether preserving the past or shaping the future, has the potential to inspire. While we strive to make the story engaging, our primary focus is on storytelling itself. The visuals are secondary. We're showcasing the remarkable capabilities of text-to-speech software that bring these stories to life. Here I am, Samuel Pepys, on the brink of shuffling off this mortal coil. Before I go, I thought it only fitting to share one last account of my life. This time, not in my usual diary, but in a more jolly tone. After all, why should a man take life so seriously when death is knocking at the door? My eyesight's gone a pot, my bladder's misbehaving more than usual, and if I'm about to croak, I may as well make some merry before I pop off. Now, where do I begin? My body's become a shipwreck, and my soul's the captain who's long since abandoned ship. The aches and pains are unbearable. If I were a building, the scaffolding would have fallen down ages ago. But Lord, the tales I could tell. So here's my life, ridiculous, glorious, and foolish as it was, before they bury me like some old turnip. My youth, a cascade of calamities. As a boy, I was about as useful as a candle in the midday sun. How I survived, I'll never know. My head was too big for my body too weak for my head, and my willpower, well, let's just say it didn't do much. I preferred games over sums. And whenever I tried to appear dignified, I'd end up with my face in a pile of dung or tripping over my own feet. Those were the days when my biggest concern was avoiding looking like an idiot. How far we've come. The Navy. Bureaucracy on the high seas. I can't talk about my life without mentioning the Navy. Clerk of the Acts. An impressive-sounding title, but really, I spent my days wading through paperwork. Did you think I was out battling Dutch ships? Nay, my friends, I was battling quills and ink bottles. The only thing I waved was my hand to shoo off my lazy apprentice. But I did manage to keep the Royal Navy from becoming a collection of sinking tubs. I once fancied myself a clever negotiator, inspecting ships and keeping the Navy afloat, until the Dutch came along and burned half of it to the ground. There I was, standing on the shore, watching the flames lick the masts, thinking, well, Samuel, you've done it now. But I put on a serious face, muttered about England's state, then dashed home to write it all down in my diary. The satisfaction of pretending I was indispensable, even though most days I felt like a puffed-up rooster surrounded by actual hens doing all the work. The Great Plague, fleas, rats, and me. The Great Plague. It was a time when rats ran the show, multiplying faster than my own mistakes. People dropping dead like flies, and houses marked with red crosses. Basically, the plague's do not enter sign. And what did I do? Stayed indoors, of course, thinking I could outwit the plague with a good diet and some stiff upper lip resolve. I even wrote, Lord, preserve us from this dreadful death. A fine sentiment, but mostly I was just trying to preserve my own skin. I had a front row seat to the plague. Well, 2 streets away, peering out my window while others fled. Every time I heard a cart rattling down the road, I'd think, here comes death with his basket of bodies. But I was careful, until one day a rat scurried across my bed. I shrieked so loudly, you'd think it was the end of the world. Perhaps it was for the rat. My maid dealt with it swiftly with a broom. The Great Fire of London, a comedy of errors. And then there was the fire. Oh, when London burns, it does so with flair. I'll never forget the sight of the flames, roaring like a beast. Buildings crumbling, people fleeing in panic, and what did I do? I ran to bury my Parmesan cheese in the garden. Priorities, you see. If the city's going to burn, at least save the snacks. I dashed about like a headless chicken, darting between my house and the Tower of London, giving advice I had no business giving. Pull down houses. I yelled. Fire breaks. I had no idea what I was talking about, but I sure sounded important. Meanwhile, the city was turning to ash, and I was mostly worried about how hot it was getting. When it was all over, I collapsed into my chair and thought, well, I didn't stop the fire, but at least I didn't burn with it. My dear wife, Elizabeth, a saint amidst my foolishness. Ah, how could I not mention my dear wife, Elizabeth? She was a fine woman, long-suffering, mostly because of me. I wasn't always the picture of fidelity, you see. A man of my station had temptations aplenty, maids, ladies, and perhaps even the odd serving wench. But I confess, I was never very good at keeping my secrets. Elizabeth had an eye sharper than a blade, and more than once, I found myself explaining why I'd come home late or why my wig smelled of perfume. But she tolerated me for the most part, and we did have some good moments. I remember once, she caught me eyeing another woman at the theater. She gave me such a look that I felt my blood freeze. Samuel, she said, if your eyes wander again, they'll not be the only things wandering from this house. And so, I looked straight ahead, like the loyal dog I should have been. What else could I do? Final thoughts. The end is nigh. And so, here I lie, awaiting the inevitable. My body has betrayed me. This cursed bladder stone, my old enemy, is likely the one to finish me off. I remember having a surgery once to remove a stone the size of a tennis ball. No joke. They cut into me, and out it came, but now it feels like it's smaller. Angrier cousin has returned for revenge. As the end draws near, I can't help but think, what a curious life. Full of trials, tribulations, and more than a few mistakes. But never dull, that's for sure. I've lived through kings, wars, plagues, fires, and more scandal than I care to admit, and I've written it all down for posterity. Some may call me vain for documenting so much about myself. To that I say, who wouldn't want to read about Samuel Pepys? If nothing else, let history remember me as the man who buried his cheese while London burned. And with that, I bid you farewell. If you ever come across a rat or a quill, think kindly of me, Samuel Pepys, clerk, diarist, and the finest fool in all of London. If you're enjoying this story, please remember to hit like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue creating content that educates and empowers. To learn more about South Africa's leading accessibility software and to support our dyslexic-friendly initiative, visit www.polispeaks4u.co.za. Drop a comment if you want more information. Thank you for watching this video.